It's just past midnight. Most of the city is asleep. Inside a storage tank, pressure is climbing. Fast. A valve that should never have failed fails. A safety system that should have caught this was offline. Within minutes, a toxic cloud is rolling low across the ground, heavier than air, invisible in the dark. People wake up choking, their eyes burning, their lungs on fire. They run. They don't know from what. They don't know where to. By sunrise, thousands are dead. By the end of the week, the number will climb into the tens of thousands. This is the story of how one overlooked shortcut, one disabled alarm, one moment of human error became the worst industrial disaster in history. This channel exists to answer one question: how do the systems we trust with our lives quietly break? Not with dramatic explosions, not with obvious villains. With small decisions, deferred maintenance, a safety measure switched off to save money, a checklist item nobody signed. Tonight we're dissecting the Bhopal gas disaster of December 1984, a catastrophic leak of methyl isocyanate gas from a pesticide plant that killed thousands of sleeping residents in a matter of hours. Our thesis is simple, and it's the reason this case still matters 40 years later. This was not an act of God. This was not unavoidable. This was a chain of ordinary human choices, cost-cutting, understaffing, ignored warnings that stacked on top of each other until collapse became inevitable. Understanding exactly how that chain formed is the only way to make sure it never forms again. Let's break it down. The plant stored a highly reactive chemical in large underground tanks. This chemical only stays stable within a narrow temperature range. Keep it cold, keep it isolated, keep it monitored. That was the entire safety principle. Simple in theory. Months before the disaster, the plant's refrigeration unit, the system designed to keep the chemical cold and stable, was shut down. The official reason? Cost savings. Running it consumed money the plant no longer wanted to spend. Production had slowed. Budgets were cut. Without refrigeration, the chemical sat at a far higher temperature than its design allowed. A ticking variable, hiding in plain sight. A properly run facility like this needs layered redundancy, multiple independent systems, each one a backup for the last. Here's what should have caught the failure before it became a catastrophe. A gas scrubber, meant to neutralize a leak, was under capacity for an escape of this scale. A flare tower, meant to burn off escaping gas safely, was out of service, disconnected for repairs. Alarm systems that should have alerted the surrounding neighborhoods were not connected to any public warning network. Staffing had been cut. Fewer trained operators were on shift than the plant was originally designed to require. Each one of these, alone, might have been survivable. Together, they formed a structure with no floor beneath it. On the night of the disaster, water entered one of the storage tanks, the exact contamination the entire system was designed to prevent. Investigations later pointed to a maintenance procedure that went wrong, though the exact cause was disputed for years. Without refrigeration, without a working scrubber, without a functioning flare tower, there was nothing left to stop what happened next. The chemical reaction inside the tank ran away. Pressure spiked far beyond what the tank could hold. A valve gave way. Gas began pouring into the night air above a city of over 800,000 sleeping people. The gas was denser than air. It hugged the ground. It moved into the streets, into homes, into the lungs of people who had no warning system to tell them to run. Thousands died within hours. Survivors suffered permanent lung damage, blindness, and long-term illness that would affect generations. There was no single villain who wanted this to happen. There was a factory that quietly removed one safeguard after another, each decision small, each one defensible in a meeting room, none of them survivable in combination. In the days that followed, investigators moved through the wreckage of the plant's own systems, piecing together exactly how so many fail-safes could fail at once. What they found reshaped industrial safety policy worldwide. Governments introduced new laws requiring companies to disclose the hazardous chemicals they stored so nearby communities would know exactly what risk lived next door. Mandatory emergency planning became law in many countries. Plants were now required to have public alarm systems and evacuation plans, tested and verified, not just written on paper. Independent safety audits became standard practice, removing the ability of a company to self-certify its own safety without oversight. The disaster also triggered a global rethink of something engineers now call inherent safety design, the idea that the safest plant isn't the one with the best emergency response. It's the one that never needed an emergency response in the first place. Reduce the hazard. Don't just manage it. Legal battles over compensation and accountability stretched on for decades, and debates over responsibility continue to this day. But the clearest legacy is this. Nearly every modern chemical safety regulation you can name today traces its lineage back to this single night. Here's the uncomfortable truth at the center of this story. Every safety regulation you've ever benefited from, every alarm system, every inspection, every rule that seems like unnecessary red tape exists because someone, somewhere, didn't have it. Safety rules aren't written in ink. They're written in blood. If this kind of deep, unflinching breakdown of how disasters actually happen is something you want more of, hit subscribe. This channel exists to make sure these stories, and the lessons buried inside them, are never forgotten. Next time, we're breaking down another catastrophe that changed an entire industry overnight. You will not want to miss it.